Thanks for joining us. I'm Jay Dellinger. Coming up are exclusive interviews of candidates running for Clerk of Courts and County Commissioner in the 2014 Republican primary. Each candidate has been given the opportunity to explain why they feel they are the best fit for the position. So sit back and watch as these candidates battle it out to earn your vote in the election. Thanks for watching. I'm Jay Dellinger, Lincoln Herald.
We're talking now with Fred Hatley, who is our current Clerk of Superior Court in Lincoln County. Fred, you are running for re-election. How long have you been the Clerk of Superior Court?
When I've been the clerk for the last 12 years.
Do you feel that experience is valuable?
I think experience is very important. When I was elected in 2002, I came in with very little experience, and I was so far behind ever getting up and running myself. And I have 12 years experience. I have a master's degree from Appalachian, and I have 31 years of teaching behind me.
How many people work in the clerk's office?
We have 18 40-hour positions, and we have 2 20-hour positions.
Are those specialized positions, or do people work in other areas?
Out of the total number of people we have the estates and special proceedings, we have criminal office, we have a civil office, we have juvenile office, we have child support office, and then the cashier's office that takes in all money from filing of court costs, from court-ordered child support, and from restitution.
The clerk has, of course, the duty of calling people for jury duty. We've all been there at one time or another, I think. Of course, you schedule the trials that occur. What else does the clerk of court do?
We have a number of things that we do, and one of them is one of the things that I do, and I used to enjoy doing it, but it's not a very enjoyable process, and that's the foreclosures that I have the hearings for foreclosures. And the number is down now, thank God, from what it used to be. But at one time I did 20 foreclosure hearings in one day, and this week I have done 3 all week long. So the economy may be picking up and may be getting better. That's one of the things I do. I do service first thing that comes back from the Sheriff's Department. I do that first thing every morning, and we have to have service in order to carry out the lawsuit. The person has to be served that has the action taken against them.
Why do you feel the people should re-elect you to the position of Clerk of Court?
I feel like I'm probably the best candidate. I have 12 years experience. I have a master's degree from Appalachian State. I have 31 years of teaching experience, and Administrative Office of the Courts offers up classes, and I have taken an awful lot of the classes so I can get up and coming on the new aspects of the laws that come into effect. And I come back and teach the other girls in the office, and that saves having to have a void in those offices. We can send out one person or maybe 2 people from different departments so we have all the offices covered. And we have an open door policy in that we make sure that we meet the needs of the people that come in.
We're talking now with Alex Patton, who is a candidate for Clerk of Court in Lincoln County in the May 6th primary. Alex, why did you decide to run for Clerk of Court?
Well, Lincoln County's been very good to me. I'm a lifelong resident of this county, and I enjoy serving the community. And I wanted to do it on a full-time basis. So the way for me to do that is to run for Clerk of Court. I'm excited about the opportunity. I really care about the community. I enjoy being a commissioner, but it's part-time. It's full-time, but I can't do that. I work 60 and 70 hours a week at a retail job. So my goal is to serve the citizens of Lincoln County on a full-time basis. So that's why I ran.
What exactly does the Clerk of Court do?
Well, the Clerk of Court's a liaison really between the public and the court system. It's a very important job. Adoptions, they can hear those cases. They make the final determination on whether wills are valid. Just anything to do with the court system. They have really certain arrest powers. So it's a critical job, and I feel like I've got the leadership skills to do that.
Why do you feel that you, as opposed to Mr. Hatley or Ms. Bergen, should be the choice of the people for clerk of court?
Well, I think I have a more diverse background than any of my opponents in this particular race. I've served 15 years in the military, 4 of that on active duty in a military intelligence environment. After that, I got off active duty. I served 11 years in the National Guard in Gastonia in the engineer unit. We traveled the world, built bridges and roads and highways and different things. So there's 15 years of military background. I have 30 years of retail management. Currently, I manage 140 associates on a daily basis. So managing 7 or 8 or 10 or ever how many, I'm used to that. I'm used to making decisions in a hurry. You don't have time to wait. Customer service, I've got 30 years of customer service experience. In my business, I have to make a decision to take care of that customer immediately. I can't think about it. I have to do what's right then to take care of that customer. I've been a county commissioner for the last 10 years. I'm fortunate that my peers elected me to be the chair for the last 5 years. I've served on the DSS board for the last 8 years. And again, my peers have made me the chair for the last at least 4 years. I've been the chair of that organization. And that gives me a lot of insight into some of the things that the clerk of court deals with. I've been the chair of an emergency services committee. 8 years ago, we started a committee to improve all the emergency services in this county. So I have a good working relationship with the sheriff and all the folks that you have to work with to be the clerk of court. So I feel like I have the most varied background. Being in government for the last 10 years on a leadership role, customer service and retail managing people for 30 years, and just that hardcore 15 years of military experience, learning to get the job done, I think makes me the best candidate.
Are there any specific improvements that you would make in the clerk's job?
Well, you know, you hear things, but certainly you never know the reality of the situation until you get there. But certainly customer service is a focus. I never want to leave or allow somebody to walk away without their question answered. No is not an option. Certainly they will be treated in a professional and friendly manner. Never rude. In my business, if you're rude to a customer, you may survive the first time, but certainly the second time, you would be unemployed. And that's what I think we need to bring to government is everybody that comes into that office would be my customer, and I would treat them as such.
We're talking now with Candy Stevens Bergen, who is a candidate for Clerk of Superior Court. Candy, why did you decide to run for Clerk of Court?
Well, about a year and a half ago, I was approached by several citizens. A couple of people in the community asked me to consider to register to file for Clerk of Court, that they felt some changes needed to be in the office with customer service and accountability, the clerk being available to the citizens. And I, at that time, said, well, that's something I would really need to think about. And I took about a year, thought about it, prayed about it, talked with my family, and in the meantime, also did research of what entailed in the clerk's office. Exactly, talked with other people, talked with people in other counties at clerk's offices, and just kind of got a feel for what was going on in that office. And I then decided that I would run, I would file, and if it was meant to be, it would be, but I would work hard to get there and get out and, do more research and find out what needed to be done and just provide more front line to the citizens of Lincoln County. They deserve that. If they're paying the taxes for that service, and it needs to be accountable. Okay.
What exactly does the Clerk of Court do?
Well, in my research, there is many things, many, more than anybody could imagine that a clerk is responsible for. But the main things, they're probate judge, so they're over wills, estates, foreclosures, competency hearings, like I said, estates, just all kinds. They're record keepers for the office, files, all court cases, paperwork, make sure that it gets to the appropriate locations and filing systems. They're administrators of the monies that are dispersed and brought into the over fines and fees and forfeitures. I'm sorry. And they, keep up with the monies that are dispersed that way. And they're controller. So they, you're the front line in that office. So you have the employees there that you are in charge of and that work under you. So each position is very important too, because they help the clerk as well.
You are currently the chairperson of the Board of Education.
Yes.
Is that going to leave a hole if you are elected to the clerk of court?
Well, my term ends this year. So if I would decide, if I lost the primary and I decided to run, I would be able to file in July to run this November for that position again. As far as leaving in a hole, if I won the primary and I won the general election in November, there would be a hole, but someone would step up, I would hope, that would bring to the table what I brought. And with everybody on the school board brings something different, and that is what is so good about what we do together now. The people that are on there, everybody brings something different. I bring advocacy. I want to advocate for the children and the students and the teachers in the classroom. You have other ones that bring financial and policy, just things that are just, that's their forte. So we all bring something. So I would hope and pray that someone would step up to want to run and be able to fill those type shoes to advocate and do the right thing, make the right decisions.
Of course, as we mentioned, you're currently on the school board. Tell us a bit more about yourself, about your background.
My background, well, I have lived in Lincoln all my life, and I am married to Todd Bergen. I have 2 children, Jordan, he's 23, and Kyle, he's almost 12. And he's in the school system now. He's a 6th grader. I work for North Carolina Department of Transportation in Human Resources and Personnel. I work out of Lincoln County. I cover Lincoln and Catawba counties, and I also do some traveling with trainings and interviews. One thing with the state, we have the same hiring policies that the clerk's office has, where you go through the NeoGov system to process and post your positions, and then you go through EEOCs, and you follow all policies and procedures. So I'm very familiar with hiring qualified candidates and sitting in on interviews to do that. A lot of other things. I have many areas that I do. I cover workers' comp claims, Family Medical Leave Act. I'm the assistant to the district engineer for Lincoln County. So just handle all office administration, and also have other clerks under me in other counties.
Why should I, as a voter, choose you over the other 2 candidates for clerk of court?
Because I feel like that I can go into that office and bring structure and accountability and availability. If you come in there, and you have people that take vacation and you have sick time, and that's very understandable. But as an elected official, it shouldn't just be, I come when I want to. I show up when I want to. I work a job. I work my 8, 9, 10 hours a day, whatever it be, whatever day, I have things I have to take care of. And I would do that there. I would be accountable to my time. I would be accountable to the customers that come in the door. And if it took all day to sit down with you, to help you through something, and I didn't know the answer, we would find the answer. I would take the time to do that with you. And that's what is deserved for the citizens. And they need to be treated. Everybody comes in, and if somebody comes in, and I deal with that now, people call and they're upset about issues with DOT. All they want to do is vent. They want someone to talk to, and they want someone to try to help them. And I can provide those 3 things. I can listen, and then try to find a solution, and be nice about it. And everyone deserves that.
You have just watched exclusive interviews of candidates for Clerk of Courts. But stay tuned and watch as the candidates for County Commissioner battle it out to earn your vote in the 2014 Republican primary. But first, a word from these sponsors.
Walking down the sidewalk, kicking my feet as I'm moving to the music. Step to the beat, I woke up today, canceled all my plans, and I stepped right outside with my guitar in my hands, and the notes became loud as the sound caressed the air, and I kicked it up a notch as I strolled without a care, 'cause I'm going down the road to a brand new place, and I'll get there with a smile on
talking now with Bill Beam, one of the 4 Republican candidates for 2 seats on the Lincoln County Commission. Bill, tell us about yourself.
It's kind of a short story. I live in the west end of Lincoln County. I've lived there all my life. My family, I live in my grandfather's old home. On the family farm, I raise horses and hay. So I've started a small farm business at my retirement in 2005. I worked for the sheriff's office from 1975 until 2005. I retired as the chief deputy. I was working for Barbara Pickens. In 2010, Sheriff David Carpenter asked me to come back and assist him in his administration, and so I've gone to work as a part-time employee as a deputy sheriff for Sheriff Carpenter. He's been graciously given me the title of the Chief Deputy Emeritus, which is, I have retired but I retain my title. I've really enjoyed working for Sheriff Carpenter. He's a unique individual and has been really great for law enforcement.
Why did you decide to run for county commission?
A number of issues that I thought I saw the county maybe, I saw starting to farm out a lot of issues, a lot of contracts where county managers and employees were hiring other people to do their jobs for them, and I saw that maybe we needed a little more supervision, and I felt like that if you're going to have issues and you think that some changes maybe need to be made, then you need to be willing to be a part of those changes. And I've seen a lot of changes in law enforcement through my career at the sheriff's office, and I'd like to be part of some changes, hopefully for the good, for the entire county. And so I felt like I wanted to be a part of that change, and at this point in time, I have the time available. I believe I have the experience and the leadership available to give 100% of my myself to try to help the county.
What things do you see either as current issues for the county commission, things they may already be considering, or things that you expect might be considered in the coming year?
The county commission is an extremely busy place. We need to take a look at my father died in 2009, and I've sold some property within the past 12 months, and I've bought property within the last 12 months. All the property that I bought and did not pay tax value for it. I bought it for less. And the property that I sold for less than the current tax value. I think that our property values are over the market value. I think this needs to be addressed. I would like to see us address being more of a business type approach where we treat the taxpayers as our customers and be a pro community advocate. I think that the sheriff's office has led the way in having district offices for our Adam, Baker, and Charlie districts. We have an active office down on the east end of the county in the Charlie district. Aaron Long runs it. We've got a clerk there. We do just about any law enforcement needs that you would have living in that district that can be handled out of that office. The same way at the New Hires Creek Fire Department in the Adam district. I think our community government needs to start letting our citizens, because everybody is so busy now, it's hard for people in the far west end of the county to maybe to come into town on a basis where they just have a small need for a gun permit or so forth. And they can do these things online as far as the sheriff's office goes, but a lot of these things that we can do with county government and have substation offices to give our services, to better provide the service that we have to the citizens out in these remote locations and do a better job.
Is there anything that the county is currently doing or the commissioners have decided that you would have done differently or that you would change in terms of the way county government operates?
I think so. You have to have the same, if I can't change the way that I would say I would vote on this or that because I don't have the exact same information that the commissioners did when they made those decisions. You can't just quickly make a decision and if you don't have all the information. And so there's some things that I would like to get some additional information on to see whether they possibly need to be revisited. I know that some of our managers have not had the same insurance policy that the regular county employees had. If they're not being treated exactly as the other employees, then that's a possibility where people may feel like they're not being fairly treated.
What about economic development? Do you think the county is doing what it should and could in terms of economic development?
From what I've seen, I think the county has done a very proactive job to try to bring businesses into Lincoln County and bring jobs along with it. We went through a really bad time of long about 2008, 2009 to now, when we're making the turn back for the economy to pick up, and we went through some really bad years there. And but I think the county's done a really good job with economic development.
The school system has recently said that it is going to ask for a substantial amount of increase in money from the county commissioners, in particular for local supplements for teachers and principals. How do you feel about that?
I would like to see teaching supplements be given to teachers, and that means classroom instructors, not administrators, not people that work in the finance department or people that work in the maintenance department. I think that supplements, teaching supplements, should go to teachers. The school system is handled by the school board, and we need to make sure that we stay current. We can't say that the reason that the answer for why are we doing these things is it's the way it's always been done. If that's the answer, we need to stop, turn around, and really look hard at the reason that we're doing some of these things. With technology nowadays, one of the things that I've noticed, I have grandchildren in the school system, but I've noticed that we have a lot of children now receiving homeschooling. We've got the charter schools are full and busting at the seams, so there's a lot of people taking the options away from the normal send your children to the Lincoln County school system and going to charter schools, a huge number of at-home school students. And so what are their options? How does this all work together? Are people fleeing the school system to do homeschool? Maybe we need to change the way we do some elementary things.
Finally, we would like to give you an opportunity to address the voters and tell them exactly why you should be one of their choices for county commission.
I'm at the age that, with my experience from the sheriff's office and being a longtime county employee, I feel like that I have the knowledge of the way our government currently works. I think I made enough changes at the sheriff's office to go from a proactive type situation where we were totally reactive back in the 70s and so forth. If we saw a problem, we reacted totally to the problem. We tried to become reactive to crime and do things about preventing crime. And I think the county has to be proactive about a lot of things, and I think we need to change the way that we do business. I feel like that I've led men with the sheriff's office, and women too, and that I can give respect and gain respect. You have to earn it. You don't demand it. And I believe I could be a leader for our county, and I would like just a consideration. When they get ready to mark their ballot, I would like, if they'll give me just a few seconds of their consideration before they mark the ballot, I would appreciate it.
We're talking with Rich Permenter, who is a candidate for the county commission, seeking one of two seats that are available in this year's election in the Republican primary on May 6th. Mr. Permenter, tell us a little bit about yourself, some history.
Sure. I'm a retired officer in the Commission Corps of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It's a uniformed service nobody heard of. Think Navy officers with degrees in science and education. I spent over 28 years active service as a NOAA Corps officer, rising from ensign to captain. Prior to that, I spent a little over 4 years enlisted in the Marine Corps, including 2 tours in Vietnam, and actually went to college under the GI Bill, which is how I got my commission, and discovered how much better commission life was. Got married. I've been married for 46 years. My wife's name is Jan. She's from outside of Chicago. We have 2 grown children, both married, families of their own. I have 4 grandsons. One of them, my daughter, lives outside of Winston-Salem. Our son lives up in Maryland and works as a scientist for the Army at Fort Detrick. I've lived, at last count, 10 states. North Carolina is the only one where I've lived in by my own choice. I've got a bachelor's degree in geology from Oregon State University and a master's in marine affairs, which was a mid-career graduate course that I took while still on active duty. And we called it political oceanography, but it combined a lot of elements of public policy, public administration. For fun, mostly I do boating. The lake is why I live in East Lincoln County. I boat, I target shoot and hunt, mostly with muzzle loaders. I'm a life member of the Military Officers Association of America. I'm a member of the American Legion, the NRA. My wife and I are both members of Lake Norman Lutheran Church. I think that pretty well sums it up. One thing in addition to that is I don't really have a hometown because my father was also a career in the Coast Guard. So this is the first place where I've lived where I had a choice.
You were also a member of the Lake Norman Marine Commission.
I was indeed. I've served on 2 appointed boards or commissions for Lincoln County. I served for 5 years on the Lake Norman Marine Commission with the last year as chair. We left, the fellow who preceded me on the Marine Commission from Lincoln County and I both were very concerned about the state of the navigation aids as well as the amount of money being spent on administration, things of that nature. By the time we left, by the time I finished my 5th year, we were recognized by the professional fishermen on the lake and by the charter boat people as having the navigation aid system the best that it's ever been. We cut the administrative budget in half and put all that money into real things, tangible assets, something that protects people who are out on the lake. And then I'm in my 2nd appointment and in my 3rd year on the Board of Equalization and Review hearing taxpayer appeals.
What caused you to decide to run for county commission?
That's a very good question, and I think that's one that probably all 4 people have wrestled with, as well as everyone who's gone before us. Since I live here by choice, and my background has been government, I've been interested in the county government, been interested in how things have gone. A couple of people that I knew reasonably well, George Arena was a friend of mine, Jim Klein I knew, and of course I've known Martin through his activities in the county, but several of the leaders, past county commissioners, Tom Anderson included, as well as a couple of people who have been active in the Republican Party, knew of my background and urged me to run. And I said I would consider it, and I gave it a lot of thought. And I believe a commissioner, I'm speechifying here a bit, but a commissioner has to have several things. First of all, you've got to have the experience that's necessary. You have to have that experience, includes education. You also have to be a good listener, and you have to have the time. My experience has been doing exactly the sort of thing that county government does at a different level. And NOAA, which is a technical agency that doesn't tolerate bureaucracy or waste or delay, we formed good partnerships with state and local governments. So I had the experience. I was able to do that. I learned a long time ago to listen to people because everybody's got something that they can contribute. And frequently you can combine their ideas and make things work. So I went through all of that in my mind, thought about it for a while, and decided that I have the time, and my career was duty driven. If I have the qualifications and the time, then I have the duty to serve.
The election this year poses the possibility, if neither you nor Mr. Oakes is chosen in the primary, of resulting in no resident representative from the eastern part of Lincoln County. Are you concerned about that?
Yes, of course I'm concerned. I think it's a good idea to have people on the county commission that have their own local perspective. I do believe, strongly believe in fact, that a county commissioner has to represent the entire county, but it's the ultimate responsibility for making sure that people's views are represented in county government lies with the electorate. It's up to the voters to decide just how important that is. I think it's a bad decision to elect someone based solely on where they live. The qualifications have to come first. The qualifications and the ability to serve well have to come first. But sure, everybody gets concerned about it. There have even been suggestions to establish the commission in a different way.
What, if anything, would you change that the commissioners currently have done? Or what issues do you see that you have an opinion that you might improve on if elected?
I actually believe that the county commissioners have by and large done a pretty darn good job since I have been here. They work very hard at representing the county's interests. I do believe that there is room for significant improvement in letting everyone else in the county know what's going on. For example, when I first heard about the Lake Norman Marine Commission or the Board of Equalization and Review, I learned about that by digging and by word of mouth. There was no public notice that I ever saw. There may have been, but I never saw it. I think you might get a response from a much broader spectrum of people. There are a lot of incredibly qualified people out there who also have the time to serve. I'd like to see that change. I'd also like to see the commissioners sit down with the county manager. There's long-term priorities and short-term priorities, immediate things that have to happen. And if I am elected, there are a couple of immediate things that'll happen. The county commission will sit down with the county management staff and the school board and decide the fastest way to implement two fairly serious initiatives that the school boards come up with that will reduce county government costs, just the simple cost of having a county government, by hundreds of thousands of dollars a year if fully implemented. And half of that money will go to the school board for discretionary spending on such things as perhaps, obviously, we don't control the school board. Nobody controls the school board except the voters and the board themselves. But they're very eager to put this money into some really useful things, perhaps heavier investment in the manufacturing classes that they're going to start in the high schools, any technology improvements, or supplements for the classroom teachers who are at the point of the spear. A couple of these initiatives need to move forward quickly. They've been discussed in the past with the county commissioners. They've been discussed and in fact were recommended and moved forward with the past county manager. They haven't happened yet. Every day, month that it's delayed is costing thousands of dollars that could be put to good use. So that's short term, and that all goes to providing money for economic development by supporting the schools. Students are revenue. Bob Silver, a man on the school board, told me that point blank. Students are revenue. Qualified graduates are revenue. He's absolutely correct. In the longer term, I think you have to continue, the county commission has to continue to work with and encourage LEDA. They have done a magnificent job. The county commission also needs to sit down, and this is, I'd do it immediately, but it'll take time to actually get everything changed. The Unified Development Ordinance has, in my view, has to be modified to reflect the needs and preferences of other areas. You cannot apply East Lincoln standards to West Lincoln. It doesn't work. It does not represent their values. Further, it hinders investment and economic growth. That makes no sense. The reason it's the short-term priority, the first thing you've got to do is bring in some of these business leaders as well as volunteers, some of these retired people with expertise in engineering, landscape design, building, construction. We have several retired industrial engineers that I have breakfast with every Wednesday morning. These guys have designed factories. They know how things go together. If we don't start moving on that right now, the people outside of the eastern part of the county are going to get so irritated that they're going to try to throw the whole thing out. I heard it compared, I have no opinion on this, but I've heard it compared to Obamacare. Throw the whole thing out and start over again. I don't think it's like, I don't think it needs to be thrown out. There was too much work and too much expertise put in it. It was meant to be used with common sense. And if you bring the people into that fold, particularly the people who are investing money in their own businesses, make them a part of this like they weren't before, you'll have something that everybody will live with. Finally, in this East versus West war, that's just garbage. We got to stop that. A commissioner from East Lincoln County ought to sit over in the farthest restaurant in the West he can find one day a week and just sit there and listen to people. Nothing formal, just listen. Somebody from the West, go over to the East part. I know 2 restaurants right away that could host either, and just sit there and listen, as long as people are civil. None of this yelling or screaming at people. You got to be civil and treat everybody with respect, which is one of the things that I've seen slip backwards a bit. That's a long answer, but that's what I believe.
When someone goes to the polls, they have possibility of choosing 2 people
They do.
for the county commission. Why should you be one of those choices?
With no false modesty, I won't say that I am the best qualified, because the only people that decide that are the people who cast the vote. There's nobody better qualified than I am. I've got the experience. I've managed people and programs. I was a commissioned officer managing and directing civilians. I've done everything from inventing programs, planning activities, executing the activities, budget, hiring and firing. I've had command of a ship, which to me was the ultimate. So I've had command of ships at sea in the days before the internet. I was served as the director of operations for an entire West Coast fleet, where you've got to deal with personnel, budgets, logistics, as well as some politics when somebody asks you to defend a budget. I have some limited political experience. I served on Capitol Hill as a fellow to a senator and served as his resident legislative aide and expert on anything that had to do with oceanography or fisheries or anything that had to do with NOAA matters. I learned up close and personal how politics works and how it doesn't work. I'm willing to serve. I've got the time. I have the obligation. It's really that simple. It's up to the people to decide if they want to go with name recognition or if they want to go with name recognition and qualifications or regional. Voters run the county. I'd like one of their votes, very much, obviously, or I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now, Wayne.
We're talking now with Martin Oakes, who is a candidate for the county commission for one of 2 seats that are up for election in this year's primary. Mr. Oakes, why did you decide to seek a seat on the county commission?
Well, I've been living in this county for 17 years and seen a few things not handled particularly right. I have a daughter and son-in-law and 3 grandchildren living in the county and probably be there forever. Although I don't have a great-granddaddy buried in the local cemetery, I intend to be buried in the local cemetery, so my great-grandkids can say that. So I'm not planning to go anywhere. I'd like to leave the county in somewhat better shape than I find it. And that's the major reason I'm running.
You ran before and lost narrowly, I think, by 10 votes
Correct.
to Jim Klein. You decided to throw your hat in the ring, so to speak, again. You say that there are some issues that you think have not been handled well. Can you elaborate?
There are taxation issues, essentially, and I lump water and sewer fees in with taxation. Just as one example, 3 years ago, the county took $400,000 of cash from the water fund and put it in the sewer fund. In past years, when that kind of thing went on, it would be transferred as a loan, but this was just a cash transfer. Essentially, the water customers are subsidizing the sewer customers. Now, since I'm both, it's like taking $1 out of one pocket and putting it in the other, but there are 10,000 water customers and 3,000 sewer customers. So it's more like taking $1 out of every water customer and putting $3 in every sewer customer's pocket. The people who lose on that are the people who don't have sewer but pay water fees. And according to state law, it's not supposed to run that way. And after some protest, I complained, and Carol Mitchum complained pretty verbally. The next year, the county went and decided that on the books they would merge those two departments, which again is not legal. You have to treat all those water and sewer and landfill funds as separate entities. If all the water and sewer customers were the same, you could justify having a single fund, but they're not. And so that's just a sample of what kind of thing goes on. It's not so much trying to penalize taxpayers, it's more laziness. We've got this pocket of money here, oh, we'll grab that and use it for the shortfall we have over here. And that seems to be the mentality in a lot of cases. And I find it very difficult to get across to county commissioners that they can't do that. And you know, I know what the law is. I've been through the books a number of times and looked at court cases. So I have a pretty good idea that somebody could win a lawsuit on that. On the other hand, why would you fight a lawsuit over $4 a month? It's like, you know, and that's what they count on, I think. You know, nobody's going to go to court over $4 a month or $5, whatever the number turns out to be. But there are other issues where that kind of thing has gone on. As another example, in 2008, the county took over the East Lincoln Sewer District. They did it by transferring all of the assets out of the East Lincoln Sewer District into the new county sewer department, or sewer fund if you like. And for all those assets, they paid the grand sum of $1. They left behind the debt. So you have a bunch of people in East Lincoln, and it's a property tax. It's not a tax on sewer customers, it's a property tax. So there are people who don't have sewer connections are paying the sewer property tax, and on their cars and trucks. And so they got left behind with the debt. When the county took over those assets for $1, the assets included $3.7 million in cash. Now, would you hand me your entire bank account for $1, please? Well, that's kind of what goes on, and nobody raised a fuss. Nobody said this is wrong. Now, in fact, what the county did less than a year, a little over a year later, was pay back $2 million of that by taking $2 million from the sewer fund and paying off some of the East Lincoln sewer debt. But there's still $1.7 million out there that was used. Oh, it's a handy pocket of money we can take. And the mentality of doing that kind of thing is what bothers me. The third thing is the school debt. Citizens voted to tax themselves, although they weren't explicitly told that was going to happen. They should have assumed that. But they basically said, we'll spend $75 or $80 million on school expansion, not all of which got spent. So the county incurred all that debt, built a lot of new schools, and now that debt is starting to be paid off. County management generally thinks that that level of debt payment is what they can have forever. I'm sorry, the citizens didn't vote for that. They voted to do it specifically for schools, not to use it for whatever next new fancy project they'd like to spend the money on. And I think that money should come back to the taxpayers. And the county should think seriously about what grandiose new projects they can do with the money they should save. They should give it back to the taxpayers and not do that. So there's a number of those taxation issues decided at the highest levels that I think are all wrong. And you can't necessarily go back and fix all those, but you can certainly stop them from happening in the future.
You spoke about assets. Sometimes assets and liabilities may be the same thing. One possible example of that would be the old Lincoln County Hospital building. What is your opinion about the county's position on that? There's been talk about moving county offices from the Citizen Center out to the old hospital.
That's sort of a liability as much as anything. Right now it's costing, depending on the season, $25,000 to $30,000 a month on air conditioning and or heating. And so it's sitting there not doing a lot. We have used it occasionally for offices. I know the probation office is moving over there. And I'm talking about the main hospital building. There are a couple of adjacent buildings that are office buildings are in good shape. The home health agency is in one of those buildings. The health department headquarters is still in their old crummy space. What I think we could do, and we need somebody to look at it carefully, is partially renovate certain parts of it to make office space for places where either the facilities we have now are terrible or we're paying rent. The probation office is an example where we were paying rent. We're apparently paying rent on the DA's office. But you know, the DA is not going to want to move to the hospital. He's going to want to be right there on the court square. So he's not a candidate to get moved. And if you think about moving the county offices to the hospital, I can't think of a more inconvenient spot. And so for that reason, the county has already arbitrarily decided, and probably the right decision, to keep the tax department where it is in the bank building, keep the register of deeds upstairs because it's adjacent to the courts and the courts need access. So you have a bunch of customer service kinds of things committed to staying on Court Square. So what then do you move to the hospital? And why? Who needs to move to the hospital badly? I can't think of anybody. The Planning and Inspections Department is in free space. It's old, but it's free. It's a county building. If we're going to hire more inspectors, and we're about to apparently, the inspection activity is in East Lincoln. You find someplace in East Lincoln for those people to live, either in a trailer on Shea Homes' new site, or there's offices in the water plant or in the sewer plant that are available. So you could find space for a couple of people over there. No reason to have the Planning and Inspections Department move. So who else is left to move? And what is the benefit to the average taxpayer on moving people to the hospital? I can't see a single one. If we're saving rent money, okay, that makes some sense, depending on what the other options are. But I would not go along with doing a major renovation of the whole thing.
You mentioned the inspections department and the 2 new inspectors that were just approved for that department.
Right.
Is this a signal of growth that is absolutely necessary, or could that money have been saved?
Unlikely. If you look at the building permit trajectory, the building permit trajectory has been coming back for the past 3 or 4 years gradually. And when things went south in a big way, we cut back at least 6 and maybe 8 inspectors. So we basically gutted that department, and there's only a couple left. So any increase in activity means we need more people. And if Shea Homes goes ahead, that's, I don't know, that's 1,500 building permits over 3 years. That would be almost back at the level of what we had in 2006. And so, yeah, we're going to need those people. And they got to be trained and so on, depending on what their backgrounds are.
This election poses a situation that would have been hard to expect a few years ago. A possible shift in the balance of power geographically to the western part of the county as opposed to the eastern part of the county. You and Mr. Parmenter are the only candidates from the eastern part of the county. Should neither of you be elected, there would not be any person on the board living far east of Lincolnton Township. How do you feel about that?
Probably not a good idea. I think you should have people from all parts of the county. It's been the other way.
There has been talk about the possibility of having district representation. How do you feel about that?
As I said last night, I don't like that idea. That has the potential for locking in a weak candidate, a weak commissioner for a long time, just because nobody in his part of the county wants to run against him. You kind of had that with people on the school board. There were several districts that were just basically non-competitive. And we had essentially a lot of trouble trying to replace those people who were not doing anything until we had the school board redistricted, which has improved that situation a lot compared to what it was.
Speaking of schools, the schools are asking for a substantial amount of more money from the county, not for capital outlay, which was the bond issue, but for current operating expenses. They want to increase the local funding for teachers and principals. How do you feel about that?
We should try and make things better for teachers. I haven't seen their recent request. They've always asked for more money every time. It's not new news that they would ask for more. I don't know how much they're asking for this time. One of the issues with the what's called the salary supplement for teachers is that the school board has historically not spent it only on teachers. They have spent 20% of the money the county sends across the street to them on administrators, starting with assistant principals and going up. And the issue I have with that is they claim that they're able to give a supplement of 6.7% to teachers. Well, if you look at the charts that they use, the amount they give for principals is 12%. And that 12%, of course, is on a much higher base than a teacher's salary. And then there's the school superintendent, who I think is at 14%. And that's where the 20% goes. It goes into all those top-heavy positions. And I don't think that teacher supplements are meant to go there. And I know you can't cut that off immediately, but I would say any increase that the county should approve in the coming budget, and I won't have any say in that, nobody will, should be a fixed amount per teacher. So if you want, another $1 million and there's 1,000 teachers, I don't know how many there are, roughly that many. Okay, that's going to give you $1,000 per teacher, and each teacher gets the same amount, and nothing goes to central office staff. And you can argue about assistant principals and principals, but essentially, the problem we have in the state overall is that our entry-level teachers are woefully underpaid. They're at the bottom or just above West Virginia in the 11 southeast U.S. states. And the senior teachers, the ones with a lot of experience, are second to Georgia. So our salary scale, the slope of that scale is way out of line. And it has the effect of discouraging new teachers from entering the business. And so it tends to protect the jobs of the senior people. And you can see the union level kind of mentality at work there, because they'd like to see that situation. I think that's backwards. I think at some point you need to have entry-level teachers getting enough to live on. Nobody goes into teaching for money anyway, but you have to be able to live on your salary.
What is the primary reason why a voter going to the polls should vote for you as opposed to the other candidates for county commissioner?
I have a track record of going to county commission meetings and looking at the numbers behind the proposals and figuring out what's really going on. And so of all the candidates, I'm the least likely one to say, yes, sir, to the county manager. If I'm on that commission, I'm going to be asking questions. And you can tell in a few questions whether the department manager in question is blowing smoke at you or not. If they've got their facts straight, you can figure out pretty quickly. And I think after 3 or 4 episodes of that, you'll figure out which department manager knows what they're doing and is on top of the job, and which one is blowing smoke at you. And there used to be a lot of them that were like that. Madge Huffman is one example, who blatantly lied to the county commissioners on multiple occasions. But she's gone. And the new tax administrator, I don't know well enough to know anything about him. But you need to ask those questions. You need to be inquisitive about what the proposals are. And what alternates did you look at, sir? Did you decide to just arbitrarily go add the farmer's market to the East Lincoln Rescue Squad Park? And what was the justification? Who asked for it? Why? And where's the money coming from? I don't see any of those questions haven't been asked. And what I see was sort of an attempt to push that extra spending through a sort of a panic, like we have to do this right now. And I don't know why we have to do it right now. We've had the park has been under development for 5 years now at least. What's another 6 months? Not going to make any difference that I can see.
We're talking now with Anita McCall, who is one of 4 candidates seeking one of the 2 nominations for the Republican Party for this fall's general election in the May 6th primary. Anita, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Anita McCall. I've lived here in Lincolnton. I live downtown behind the police station in Lincolnton. I've been here for 16 years. I am an appointed member of Lincolnton's, the city's Planning and Zoning Board, as well as the Board of Adjustments. And I am in my 4th year with that. For the past 26 years, I've been doing engineering. I did working drawings as well as final plans for mechanical, electrical, and then the last 7 years, civil geological field. So this is a county commission seat. It is very well suited for me. Who better to look at plans than someone who's done them for 26 years. I'm 46 years old. I'm sorry, I'm 47 now. See, we get a little bit older and we forget. I'm 47 years old, and I feel like, you know, I'm young enough to be able to have the energy to do this position. I don't work anymore as an engineer. I still own AutoCAD. I could do some projects from home, but I choose not to for the most part. I am very involved in our community. I am a volunteer for Lincolnton's Downtown Development Association, and therefore the Live After Fives. I am a volunteer for the Cultural Center. I was the 2011 Volunteer of the Year for the American Red Cross for Lincoln County, and I taught for them for 7 years, and including dog CPR. So a lot of people ask me the question, what would I do? Would I be interested in making our shelter a no-kill shelter? The answer to that is I will work hard to make sure it's a no-kill shelter. And there's many other areas that I have volunteered. I have been planning to do this now for 15 years, run for county commission. 2 years ago I ran for school board, and I got 16,000 votes but lost by 400, but it was to an excellent candidate. But that was my first time throwing my name in the hat for a position. And so I'm encouraged, and a lot of people have told me they remember me from that race, and this is the next thing for me, and I believe that I have a lot to give, a lot to offer to the county. This will be my full-time position, and I will be the feet for the county commission. I'll go out and walk the land. I'll look to see if there's detention pond issues. I'll explain the drawings and what it is. There was one meeting, actually I think Wayne, you and I both were at that meeting, a county commission meeting, where they had questions about the drawings themselves, and I was dying to get up and explain it, but of course I couldn't. So I would be useful just based on my experience and my experience level. I've had the opportunity to work all over the world, and so now this is the next thing for me. So I really would appreciate the opportunity to serve on County Commission for Lincoln County.
Do you see any particular issues that might be in the coming term coming before the county commissioners?
Well, you know, right now we have the water issue that has not yet been resolved. I'm hoping that will get resolved before the 2 new commissioners get appointed. That being, the city has water to sell, the county needs water. I'd like to get that resolved before we go on. There's no way to know if that will happen before the 2 new, go on, but I know that's an issue. I've already mentioned the no-kill shelter versus what we have now. And of course, not raising taxes for our increasing needs for the county. You know, my husband and I live here in downtown Lincolnton, so we choose to live in downtown. We pay both city and county taxes. And, you know, that's our choice. However, the only thing as far as it's not gone up is our paychecks in the county. We can't put more burden on the people in our county because our median income has not increased that much. And so I'd like to see that we do some changes with some of the allocations of funds. I'm very familiar with project management. That's what part of my job was. It was not uncommon for me to have 30 projects going at one time and to be able to meet the criteria for what it is that was our budget for each one. And so what I would like to see is that we, you know, when a budget comes in, or I'm sorry, when a quote comes in, everybody knows. If you're in engineering, the first quote is typically people shooting for the moon. And they do. They ask for the high, you know, everything that they want. But what you've got to do, and I'm saying not a long drawn out thing, I'm saying quickly, let's assess what the needs are, what the absolute amount that we're willing to pay, and can you take care of that? If not, let's switch to a competitor. And you have to be absolute. You can't be constantly going over and over, because then you become a kick the can down the road commission, and we don't want to do that. Of course, we still got the issue with the county hospital, whether to put all of the county offices in there. I know that we're currently paying $25,000 to keep the lights on in there. I know that. We have just, when I say we, the county commission has just decided to put the probationary office in there. Now, you know, for a short period of time, our register of deeds went in there while their offices was being, you know. But when they did the project, they hired an outside firm to give them some numbers in 2009, which was the study of how much was it going to be worth it. That study in 2009 ended up and cost the taxpayers of Lincoln County $144,453.10. And that's taxpayer money that they did nothing with the numbers. Now those numbers are obsolete. That's a problem. That's why I'm saying this long drawn out deliberation. And also, I don't see why we couldn't have done those numbers ourselves. We have a financial manager, and now we actually have an assistant. We have people who are elected to the county commission who hopefully can do some mathematical functions. I do enough math as an engineer, oh my goodness. And that was part of my profession, was to assess all of that. Why can't we just do it ourselves? I mean, let's look at how much we're spending for the satellite offices overall. I'm talking about rent, utilities, all of the overhead for those outside offices. And let's do a bare minimum upfit for the hospital. Doesn't need to be the Taj Mahal. And so we could put some offices there already, I know, such as the health department. That would make sense. I don't know why that hasn't come up yet. But, you know, we need to look at it from a perspective of this is an option, because we don't want to have to build a new courthouse and we're running out of room. Everybody loves the courthouse. I love the courthouse. I love the history of it, the look of it. It's downtown Lincolnton. This is the most beautiful town ever. And it's the central spot for the county. And you know, our county's long. You've got people in the east that don't want the same thing as the people in the west. So I'm right in the middle, and I'm willing to listen to both sides. And I understand it. I understand what it is that they're looking for. So I think our UDO needs to be business friendly. That's a problem. We currently are making it very difficult to start a business in some of the areas of the county. So I would like to see that more business friendly and lowered to a minimal amount for the UDO. And then let people in the west, people in the east, all build businesses so that we can have increasing, businesses in the area. Let them decide what they want.
The big question: why should a voter going to the polls choose you as opposed to other candidates?
Well, this is going to sound harsh, and I don't mean for it to, but I'm 47 years old. I'm not 70. I'm not 75. I have a background already that can bring a tremendous amount to the county commission. I'm not a people pleaser. I realize I'm not going to be able to please a lot of people. Sometimes you're going to please a lot of people. Sometimes you're going to make a lot of people mad. But what I do know is I will always work for the best for the county. I want to see us prosper in all areas. And I want to listen to what it is that the areas want. As I said, the people in the west don't want the same things as the people in the east. So it's imperative that we listen and elect commissioners who you have their ear and they can speak to you just like you and I are talking. And so therefore, being able to reach them is very important. You need to be accessible. I think that because of the time of my life right now, I only have one daughter and she's raised and married. It's just me and my husband now. And so this is something that I've been looking forward to for 15 years. So I've been volunteering in every area, including the Rotary and all these different areas, to try to make sure that people know what I stand for. One thing I didn't mention is in 2009, I started a ladies group here in Lincoln County. It's called Lincoln Lovely Ladies. Now, we're not all lovely, but we are all ladies. But we do a lot of volunteer work for the county and for the city, both. We help a lot of people who are in financial need. But we have a good time. It's a girlfriend group. Guys can't join. You have to get your own group. But I started out with 3 ladies in 2009, and we have 350 women now. And we actually reach into 4 counties outside of here. This year, for example, with Relay for Life, we'll have our own tent. And I love the people. I love people in our area. I think there's a lot of good. Really, you just need to see what those people are on board for, because a lot of times they're already doing the great things. And because I don't work, I have full time that I can volunteer. So that's what I do. And if you elect me as a county commissioner, I can promise you that I'll be the hardest working one. I'll be the youngest one. But I will work well with the other commissioners. I'm familiar with most of them. I'm not running against any of those guys. I'm running for the position. And I would be happy to serve with any of them. But I believe I'm the best candidate for the position. I think that my not winning in 2 years ago for school board, that there was really a reason. And I think this was the reason. So I believe I'll be the best candidate.
We would like to thank each candidate for participating and sharing their views and ideas. Be sure to watch more upcoming videos. Until next time, I'm Jay Dellinger, Lincoln Herald.